Hello, students. You're welcome to today's lesson on dramatic irony and suspense as one of the structural and stylistic techniques in African drama. That is, dramatic irony and suspense in African drama. In order to exemplify this, we will be looking at two major plays, which are Let Me Die Alone by John K. Kagbo and The Lion and the Jewel by Wole Soyinka, so that you can have a better understanding of the two concepts and excel excellently in whatever literature examination that you might be preparing for. So, are you ready to learn with me today? Get your writing materials and stay tuned. I am Rumeso Adeyemo from English with RMG, and this video is proudly brought to you by IOTA Virtual Learning Platform. So, what are dramatic irony and suspense? Suspense is quite common, even for non literature students, everybody uses the word enough a lot. However, let's look at it one after the other. First, what is dramatic irony? Well, dramatic irony is a literary device where the audience or reader knows something that the characters in the play do not know. So, for example, you might be watching a play and then there's a scene where two persons are having a conversation over a round table. And then before they started having that conversation, someone had come there to plant a bomb under the table. So, you as the audience, you are aware that there is a bomb under the table. But the two major characters that are having the conversation are unaware. That's why they are sitting. So you, as the audience, you are on the edge. You are scared that what is going to happen when this bomb just go off like that. Do you understand? So that is a form of what? Dramatic irony. That moment whereby you are aware of something, but the characters in the play are unaware. So this happen a lot, even when you watch movies. Sometimes something is happening, someone is plotting an evil, but the all of the characters might be looking at that person as a good person. Do you understand? Because the secret is yet to what? To come into the hair to other characters. But you as the audience, you are what? You are aware. So dramatic irony often creates tension, suspense, and humor as the audience anticipates the consequences of characters' actions while they remain unaware. So, depending on the plot structure, that you get to understand the function of dramatic irony. If um, a particular character is very evil to the audience, but is still like a good person to all of the characters, then do you understand? You are going to be looking forward to what is going to happen next when other characters get to know about this particular character. It's going to create tension, it's going to create suspense. Sometimes it could create what? Humor. So now let's go to suspense itself. As I said earlier, it is quite common. Everybody knows what suspense is, like when you're expecting what is going to happen next. However, in literature, it is a literary and storytelling technique that creates a sense of uncertainty, tension, or anxious anticipation in the audience. So it is a storytelling technique. A story without suspense will not be interesting. So it is a technique. It is an intentional effort by the author to make sure that what there is suspense in the story, in the play, so that in order to do what? To arrest the audience attention. If there's no suspense, if everybody knows what is going to happen, then such author will not be able to sustain the interest of what? Of the reader or the onlooker, if it is a what? If it is a stage play, like we have in African dramas that we are going to be looking at. Do you understand? So suspense helps the author to do what? To keep the attention, to sustain the interest of the reader. So it gives the reader a what? A sense of tension or anxious anticipation of what next, which keeps the reader reading on, or the onlooker to do what? To keep watching. So suspense is that on the edge feeling you feel when you are unsure about the consequences of a character's action or decision. So suspense sometimes can be intense and it can be mild, depending, just like the example that I gave earlier, that the bomb is about to explode. At that moment you are going to be on the edge. Such kind of suspense is going to be what? Very intense, very, very intense. And sometimes it can be just mild, like you are just looking on to, okay, what is going to happen. But sometimes the suspense can be what? Intense. So now let's look at the uses of both dramatic irony and suspense in African drama. What is their function? Why do authors need to even use these two techniques? Why are they important in African drama? Another thing you need to pay attention to is that these concepts can be asked in your what your multiple choice question. You can be asked what is dramatic irony, or you could be given the definition and then you're asked to pick the name in the option. So don't mix dramatic irony with what? With suspense. Try to understand the difference. So let's start with Let Me Die Alone. Generally, Let Me Die Alone by John Kikagbu is an African play that explores themes as power struggles, betrayal, gender, and resistance in a traditional African setting. So, this video is not about the story. And I also want you to pay attention to that. When you're asked to analyze a play from a particular perspective, understand that you are not asked to retell the story. You are asked to do what? To analyze a particular concept. For example, if you're asked to discuss suspense and dramatic irony, you don't need to keep retelling the story, regardless of the play. It might not even be these two plays. Do you understand? Don't start telling the story that okay, CD is a pretty lady. She's trying to get married, but Lakunle keeps speaking big grammar. No, that's not what you're expected to do. Rather, you're expected to do what? To discuss that concept from the perspective of what happened in the play. Just like what I'm about to do now. So you could say dramatic irony and suspense are used in the play to critique power struggles, deepen the tragedy, and engage the audience as the central theme and purpose of the play unfolds. So, Let Me Die Alone is a tragedy. Do you understand? Is a tragedy form of drama. So, in the play, there are dramatic irony and suspense, which help the author to do what? To sustain the interest of the audience as the central theme and purpose of the play unfolds. So, let's assume that there is no complex structure, there is no conflict, the plot is just flat. Some readers might not even finish reading the play because there's nothing to keep them reading on. So we could identify dramatic irony in the play when Lamboy pretends to be loyal to Queen Yoko, but he was secretly fighting to seat himself on the throne on the path of blood. So he is not just disloyal to Madame Yoko, he's also disloyal to Chief Baya himself. Chief Baya is not aware of the fact that he is plotting to kill him. He was still taking him as his what? As his ally. So this is what a form of dramatic irony. So this happened early, very early in the play. That is the death of Chief Baya. And as audience, we're already aware that Lamboy did what? Planned the death. So since it happened like that, we are on the edge. It gives us what? It keeps our interest to want to read further. That, okay, what is going to happen to Lamboy eventually when Queen Yoko knows that he is the one that killed her husband? Or what is going to happen to him when the entire village or when the entire community is aware of what is going to happen next? So Lamboy also killed Jennifer, and then he tried to pin it on Madame Yoko. So all of this is what a form of what dramatic irony, which leads towards suspense. So you keep on looking on to look out, okay, what is going to happen when the entire community is aware of this man's what evil. So we could also identify suspense in the play as Yoko is unaware of Lamboy's plots and actions towards her husband, herself, and the community at large. So since Madame Yoko is unaware, as I've said earlier, all of the evil plots of Lamboy, which is dramatic irony, which is a form of dramatic irony because the audience are unaware. Sorry, the characters are unaware. We audience are the one who are what aware. So this bets what suspense. So dramatic irony is like what is going to precede suspense in any play or in any story. Are you following? So although Madame Yoko was suspicious at first because she asked Lamboy when she got to the scene where her husband was what? Where her husband died. So she asked Lamboy, how did my husband die? So this is on page 27. So it shows that Madame Yoko also suspects Lamboy, but she is not sure. Because she's not sure, she still what? Keeps him closer, even after the death of her husband. Are you following? Besides, Lamboy is family. So she only asked in the moment, in that tense moment of she realizing that her husband has died. Are you following? So this also gives us what a kind of what suspense. So Lamboy is a terrible man, which is very obvious to the audience because he said at some point, I have started walking towards this throne on the road of blood, and there is no turning back. So we as audience, we are aware of his motive. We know that why he is doing all of this is that he wants the throne. He wants to become the chief of what? Of Senior Moyamba, the community that is which is the setting of the play. This is his what? His motive. We are aware that he's desperate because of what? Of the throne. And this is even why we have one of the major themes of the play, which is what? Power struggles or power tussles. Also, we this is why we also have one of the another theme, another major theme of the play, which is what? Betrayal. So all of this dramatic irony, this suspense helps also what? Build the theme or build the central theme sometimes, depending on the what? Depending on the structure of the play, depending on the central theme, depending on the conflict in the play. So the use of dramatic irony and suspense in the play helps John K. Kagbo to build the major themes such as betrayal, power tussle, cost of power, human greed, etc., while keeping the audience engaged. So this is one of the ways to discuss concepts in literature. After you have identified it in the play, you also need to tell us the purpose and the what and why the author is using it. Don't just go on to tell the story alone if you want to score high in your literature exam. So now let's look at dramatic irony and suspense in The Lion and the Jewel. So The Lion and the Jewel generally is a humorous play that explores the clash between tradition and modernity in post-colonial Nigeria. Soyinka critiques both blind adherence to tradition and mindless embrace of Western culture. So the Lion and the Jewel on its own, it's more like a comedy, a satire. It's more like a lighter play than Let Me Die Alone, which is a what? A tragedy. However, both form of plays employ what? Employ suspense and dramatic irony. Without suspense, a play is not going to keep the interest of the reader. It's not going to sustain the interest of the what? Of the reader. So whether it is a comedy, a tragicomedy, a tragedy, authors often what employ suspense and what and dramatic irony to to sustain the interest of the reader because you want to know what is going to happen next. You want to know what is going to happen next. So you do what? You keep reading on. So despite this general function, there's also another function of it in each place. Just like I mentioned earlier, that it helps John Kikago to build the theme of what? Betrayal and all of the other central themes. So in The Lion and the Jewel, Shoyinka uses dramatic irony and suspense to build tension and the major conflicts of the play, which is Baraka's pretense about his what? His potency. So this is the major suspense in the play, which is also built by what? By the use of dramatic irony, where Sidi is unaware of Baraka's plots. Sadiku is also unaware of what? Of Baraka's plots. So this is dramatic irony is what usually precedes what suspense in a play. So Sidi innocently lets her guard down because she thinks Baraka is truly impotent. Her ignorance paved way for Baraka to take advantage of her. But you, as the audience, in that moment where Sidi is trying to go to Baraka's palace to ridicule him, you as the audience, because you are aware, you are kind of screaming within you, don't go, City, don't go, City. Do you understand? Because you are aware, because of the dramatic irony that precedes what that has preceded in the play, you are aware of what is going to happen. So this kind of what builds suspense. You are looking on that. Okay, what if City goes to Baraka? What is going to happen? Is Baraka going to marry her by force? Is he going to take advantage of her? Are you following? Or what is going to happen next? So Sadie is what's ignorant of what is going to happen. That is why she did what she was taken advantage of. So also Kunle's delusions about changing Ilujile overnight And marrying Side without paying the bride price is also laughable. It's also a form of what? Dramatic irony. Because we see Kunle as a character who knows lots of vocabulary, but who is not actually intelligent because he's not practical. Let's put it that way. He's an idealistic character. He's not practical at all. But he keeps selling these his ideals to the members of Ilunjile, who are very traditional people and practical people. They could not see how Kunle is going to bring whatever it is that he's saying into reality. Kunle has these ideas because of his own experience in the modern city where he went to school. However, bringing down that, he is not able to do or to adapt it into the reality of the people of Ilunjile. So this kind of creates a kind of conflict, do you understand, which makes the character of Kunle very funny, as he uses what different big grammar to describe whatever it is that is going to describe. So Shoyinka is able to build maximum suspense as we see Lakunle promising CD in modern life, where she will no longer fetch water from the stream nor firewood from the bush, and Baraka devising a cunning plan to win CD to himself as his wife. So you as a modern person, when you are reading this play, you are thinking, if I were CD, I'm going to go for Lakunle because of course Lakule is offering a modern life, a stress-free life. Do you understand? But Baraka first is an old man, is devising a cunning plan. He has lots of wives. So there is a lot of reason for you as the audience to believe that Sidi is going to choose Lakunle because Lakunle is even young, just as Sidi. But so this is going to also sustain your interest. You want to know, who is Sidi going to choose in the end? Is Sidi going to choose Baraka or Kunle or none of the two of them? Eventually in the play, however, Sidi choose who? Chief Baraka. So this shows that Shoyinka is trying to depict what the prevalence of tradition over modernity in traditional African society. So eventually, Baraka wins, which means that tradition prevails. Shoyinka is able to use dramatic irony and suspense to depict the struggle between tradition and modernity, while eventually acknowledging that traditional wisdom supersedes mindless embrace of modernity. It's not that modernity is bad. It's just that as an African, Shoyinka is trying to depict that you need to find a balance. You need to be realistic with your what? Your reality. You need to be able to adapt it to your reality. If Lakunle had offered to pay the bride price, if only Lakunle was not ridiculing every tradition, calling it barbaric, excommunicated, denounced, and all of the big grammar, maybe Sidi would have considered him. But because Lakunle is not practical, he's not willing to, be diplomatic with what he wants to achieve. This is why he lose Sidi to who? To Baraka. Are you following? So, in order to build the central theme, in order to pass the message across, Shoyinka uses what? Dramatic irony and suspense. That moment where you are looking at who is Sidi going to marry, what is going to happen next when Sidi knows that Baraka is actually not what? Not impotent. So in that moment, it sustains your what? Your interest to keep reading or to keep watching in order for you to know what is going to happen next. In order for you to know how is this conflict going to be what? Going to be resolved. Are you following? So this is how to discuss whatever concepts in a play. You can see that I didn't start telling the story that okay, after Sadiko has told Sidi that Baraka is impotent, so Sidi now decides to go to the palace. Sidi went to the palace, met Baraka where he is fighting. So Sidi sat. You don't need all of those stories. You only need to discuss the major things that happened in the play from the concept of whatever it is that it has been asked. So that is the examination arc for you. You need to understand that literature, when you write about literature, literature analysis is about discussing the major points, is about discussing the events, not retelling the story, because your reader already knows the story, your examiner already knows the story. Your examiner only needs you to what? To discuss the major concepts in the play. Do you understand? Do you have any question? If you have any question, do not hesitate to ask. Please share this video with your friends who are also preparing for this exam. See you in the next video. Bye for now.